Okay. This. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, you're learning Yerushalmi Perek Aleph. We're going to conclude today Halacha Aleph and God willing begin Halacha Beis. We're going to be learning Daf Yud. We left off on Daf Tes Amid Beis, 4 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Tamon Taninon. We are in the middle of the sugya of different categories of Averos, those that are considered the most egregious sins that, God forbid, causes people to lose their chelek la'olam or be'olam haba. Actually, we're going to start today with the hemshech of the Mishnah and Sanhedrin. The Mishnah and Sanhedrin and chelek begins that Kol Yisrael yesh lahem chelek la'olam haba. And then the Mishnah goes, however, ve'elu she'ein lahem chelek la'olam haba. And as the Rambam writes explicitly, that when we speak about people that don't have chelek la'olam haba, we're speaking about people that passed away without tshuva, obviously, but the obvious has to be stated. When a person does tshuva, then every yid, there's no violation for which tshuva cannot, at least on the level of them going from ein lehem chelek la'olam haba, that they get a chelek la'olam haba. We're going to learn today about the Talmudic Beinani, as the Alter Rebbe calls it, the Beinani b'shem hamushal, the one that is half and half. And even if a person, however this is calculated, even when there is mechza avedus and mechza zechuyos, the person will be judged favorably, right? V'rav chesed matei klape chesed, and we're going to have this phenomenal machlekes between Rabbi Yossi ben Chanina and Rabbi Lazar, and then at the end we're going to learn a third approach, exactly how that happens. If a person's scale is equal, how is it that the person will be judged favorably? And then the question is, the options are either Hashem, so to say, removes a shtar choiv, or Hashem sees more merit in the merits that the person did. In either event, the scale is going to tilt l'kaf schus, but this is a very deep machlokes. Do you remove a sin? Do you add to the mitzvah? And then the third approach will be the idea of shikha de kedusha, another fascinating topic. Really, ein shichacha lifnei chisik chavedecha. Normally we say that shikha, that forgetfulness, comes from klipa, but we're going to learn today the concept of shikha de kedusha, that Hashem forgets one of the violations. This is all as leading to the fact that even when a person is, again, in the b'shem hamushal beinani, the person will be judged favorably. That is going to be the end of the Agadata that we're going to have on Daf Yud Amud Aleph. On Daf Yud Amud Beis, we're going to start today the second halacha, the second Mishnah, Masechtas Peyam, that even though the Mishnah began halacha Aleph, Elu Dvarim she'ein lehem shir haPeyam, and as we keep on learning, that only on a biblical level does it not have a minimum share. Right? Once you triggered the chiyuv of Peyam, obviously for that you have to harvest, but even only one sheboilus, if you want, you can leave only one shiboilus for Peyah, or you can leave the entire field mitzvah. Obviously, the greater the mitzvah. But midrabanan, you have to leave at least a 60th, and we're going to have nuances in the Mishnah regarding that minimum, and we'll leave it at that for the introduction. And without any further ado, Chavre, let us start on Daf Tes Amid Beis, 4 lines before the bottom of the Amid. Okay. Says the Gemara. Just throwing out there that we had a brayso, a couple of daf above, in which we enumerated avedas, for which there is the peitus retribution la'olam haza, and then there is the keren retribution la'olam haba, or as the Rambam words it, ein lehem chelek la'olam haba. We learned about the poetic oil, the hamei for bris, hamagala panam atoira. And we didn't explain it yet. We're going to come back to that, God willing, on Daf Yud Amud Aleph. But let's begin. Taman Taninon says, got it. Taman Taninon says, the Gemara quoting a Mishnah in Chelek, that Elu she'ein lahem chelek ba'olam haba. Category number 1, ha'omer ein tchias hamesim, one who says that there isn't tchias hamesim, or as the Rashi right away gives us the girsa of Rashi there in Sanhedrin, if someone says Ein Tchias HaMesim min HaTorah. In other words, even if someone believes that there's going to be Tchias HaMesim, but he doesn't believe that it's Ksuva B'Torah, that it's written in the Torah, and that was that whole sugya we had in Chelik. Where's the Remes Tchias HaMesim min HaTorah? And the Rashi reminds us of one of the many Ramazim, and he quotes a pasuk from Hazino. I'm reading inside the Rashi. The pasuk concludes with the words Machatzti. Machatzti means that I struck down. Va'ani erpan, I will heal. The reish of that pasuk is Ani amis va'achaya, which means that I put to death and I bring to life. Now, when you just read the reish of that pasuk, that I put to death and I bring to life, Lav Dafke would mean that Hashem brings to life those who are already put to death. You can argue, yeah, Hashem puts the living people, Hashem is the one that puts them to death, and people that were never born, Hashem brings to life. That could be the way you teach it. But since you have in the pasuk that Mochatzti Bani Erpa, now Erpa healing, you only need for the sick. If someone is not sick, they don't have to be healed. Which means that just like in the seif of the pasuk, I struck down, and then I heal those who were struck down. That's Megala, that when it says in the beginning of the pasuk, Ani amis va'achaya, what does va'achaya refer to? I will bring to life those who already died. That's one of the Ramazim that he brings down. And then, we have, I think what I remembered was Oz Yashir Moshe. Yashir is Lashon Asid, that Moshe will still sing a Shira. And there's many other Ramazim in the Gemara, but coming back here to the Mishnah, so either the Girsa is whoever denies in Tchias HaMesim, or according to the Girsa of Rashi, even if a person believes that there's Tchias HaMesim, but he denies the fact that there is a Remes B'Torah for it, that person, God forbid, forfeits the Chelek Lo Olam Haba. The next one is the Ein Torah Min HaShomayim. The Ein Torah Min HaShomayim, very importantly, not only does that refer to the written Torah, but even if a person is Maida, that the written Torah, not only the Chamisha Chumsha Torah, the whole Chavdalet Sfarim, but the person, God forbid, denies, as Tzaddik and Baisois and all of their descendants until today, that they deny the divinity in what they call the rabbinic Torah and the oral Torah, that is also someone who doesn't have a Chelik L'Olam Haba. The third category is the Apikoides. It's fascinating. Let's go just to the Rashirilya. Let's make it a Rashirilya day, because you have different opinions what the meaning of an Apikoides is. Here says the Rashirilya on the left column, Apikoides, Hasam Mefarish there in Chelik in the Bavli Sanhedrin, going either a Mavaza Talmud Chacham or Mavaza Achedim B'fnei Talmud Chacham. Okay? In other words, it's amazing. It's probably a hemshech of not believing that Torah Min HaShomayim. Because when you have a Yid that has ingrained in his mind the Torah that's divine, you can't be mevazeh them because of what they have with them, what they have in them, who they became, what they represent at least. And Rabbi Akiva Omer, so what's Svaram Achitzoinim? So in the times of Rabbi Akiva, that was the whole thing, that people in the beginning of Bayis Sheni, they did not accept the closing of the written Torah, and they wrote many other Svarim, claiming that it was written with divine inspiration, and they wanted it for it to be part of the written Torah. Right? You have this, for example, the books of the Chashmonoim. Many of these Svarim, Hachitzoinim, they are part of what the Goyim call the New Testament. And there's a whole topic about that. How initially, Rabbi Akiva clearly says that whoever learns Sfarim HaChitzoniim, they don't have a Chelek L'Olam Haba. Those Sfarim are Sfarim, even though no one has the original, because of Rabbi Akiva's statement, no one learned it. Ultimately, it was translated from the original Lashon HaKodesh. It was sacrilegious. It wasn't holy, but they wrote it to Lashon HaKodesh, into whether it was into Greek or into other languages, and now you can get it back. You can even get it back in Lashon HaKodesh. There are many who opine that nowadays this ban does not apply anymore because the fear that Rabbi Akiva had no longer a shayach. Because whoever who rejected Ezra's closing of the Tanakh, Ezra HaSofer doesn't mean the scribe. He counted the letters. Exactly those letters are in, and now they became Mamash Goyim. They became the Christians. But anyways, he brings interesting Rashi Ilya. What's Svaram Achitzoinim? Going Sifrei Aristo, whoever learns Aristotle, which in there are arguments that there is no Hashgacha Pratis. So, anyways, coming back in the Gemara. And now, this category, for sure, we spent more time and we learned Sanhedrin, but this category of people, the Mishnah, that don't have a chelik lo'elam haba, a person who is going to utter incantations over a wound to heal the wound. And what example do they bring? This is very meduyak. For example, they bring a pasuk that we have in Bishalach, right after Shira Sayam, and they say over the wound, in order for it to heal the wound, that kol hamachla asher samti b'Mitzrayim lo yosim alecha ani Hashem reifecha. Now, ein lehem chilik lo elam haba. And don't we read Tehillim for someone who's sick? So this is a whole big topic. So let's quickly read over here. If you look inside the Rasha Ilio, so he adds again. He adds from Chelik a whole other girsa. It's not because he's reading an incantation over the wound. They used to spit in a wound because in the spittle there is some medicinal potency. So like a person is doing all the segulas. Spitting is not a ruchnias segula, but until today the Indians do it. In Brazil, you go to the old cultures, they would spit in a wound. You do this and you do that, you spit, and then you read a pasuk. You're saying words of Torah in the presence of spittle. That's the way Rashi is goyres. The whole thing is about the Rekika. Look inside the Rashi Ilio. The Farash Hasim uberoikik shanu. And not only that, not only is the problem that you spit prior, after the pasuk that the Gemara quotes, where it says at the end, "Kani Hashem reifecha," that's the problem, because you're not just saying a pasuk, you're being maskir Shem Hashem. That's the Rashi Ilio. Lefisha ein maskirin Shem Shemayim al Rekika. And therefore Rashi adds the problem is only if you were roikik, and then you read it, and then you did the lechisha. But if you're going to say a pasuk and then you're going to spit, not a problem. That shitas Rashi. There are many other opinions. There are many opinions that hold that no, that using the words of Torah as a refuah saguf is a degradation to the Torah. I'm giving the other opinion. Torah is a refuah sanefesh, but to use those words, all of this is a big sugya ba'ayin sham. To get a lot more clarity. One thing is for sure, that there's nothing greater than a yid saying words of Torah or Tehillim, l'refuah shalem of someone. We're speaking about loichish al hamaka. The big difference between davening for God to do the healing versus using the words as some sort of, the words themselves, this will be used in order to bring about a refuah. Al derech en kanamakim, the whole arichos, the sicha, the way the Rambam degradates, speaks very strongly against those who use a mezuzah as a kameya, lowering the koyach of a mitzvah into stamach kameya. So they used to have incantations. Today we're almost back there right now with all the mishigasim, the modern mishigasim of mantras. So don't make the Torah into a mantra. Oh, the Shema is a mantra. Don't do that. It's infinitely greater than that. Let's leave it at that. Okay, so that is what we begin with the Mishnah. Now, Daf Yud Amud Aleph. Let's finally get to the final shita in the Mishnah before we come to the Braisa. Of another category of people that, God forbid, forfeit without tshuva, someone who pronounces God's name with its oisius. Now, what does it mean? So again, I'm going to read the Rashi Ilio. He says Gavaldi. He begins by speaking about those who articulate Shem Mab. How you do a Labale Hakabola. And that's a critique, the greatest critique to people who might mean well over here, that they began to advertise the Shemus HaKadoshim of Hashem, Shem Mab, and even worse, Shem Ab. And people go around and they tattoo it into their hands, and everyone is this is, you don't do that. You don't pronounce, and even though there's a big koyach there, but it's holy, not to be used for anything. But according to this first interpretation, he brings from Rashi, what's Eilech if he says the Shemus. Now we have Shem Mab, there are various Shem Mabs. We have a Shem Mab that's imbued in the honor of koyach. And Dafka, as we write in the Siddur, when we say honor b'koyach, the Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana wrote a tefillah to help you remember the Shemos. Dafka, not even to say the Shemos, forget about pronouncing it correctly. But we look at it when we say honor b'koyach, So Bechlal, it's all triplets. All the Shemus HaKadoshas are triplets. Shemus of Tuma are 2, like shade, and the 3, the Shem Ab, it's all 3. However, brings the Rasha Delio from Toisvis. No, that even if you pronounce Shem Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei, we don't do that. We say Adnai. We pronounce Shem Kodesh also. But that's another meaning of Abba Hoiga Hashem Ba'oisi Yosef. And by the way, it's very much connected to being Loicha Shalamaka. In other words, even though the words of Torah are potent, and maybe they could be used, if you know how to use them, you can use it to heal. But God did not give me the words of Torah to heal. It's like a person who makes a living, this whole concept of Torah. You're degrading it. That's why Torah has to be taught Bechina. It's not a tool for your parnasa. It's not a medicinal tool. It's not a tool to bring about whatever the Kabbalah Center says it can bring. Even if it does, it's greater than that, and don't degrade it. Okay. This is a big topic, but we'll leave it because there is a fine line somewhere. Now, all this is the Mishnah. And now the Chachamim, the Tanoim, and this is a Braisa. And now we're going to interpret that which we didn't interpret in the last year. Hapoidekoil. I know these are words that an Chassidish bring and you throw it around. Hey, you're Poidekoil. But no one is saying that you're not, God forbid, Elam Mechilik to Elam Haba. There's many levels of it. We'll see soon the basic meaning over here. But Hamefer Bris, we'll see soon Mefer Bris is someone who degrades or denies the Bris Milah. How we'll see in a moment. But Hamegal upon Abatayra. What does that mean? Someone who is who disgraces the words of the Torah. We'll see soon what it means. That these are also Elam Chelik to Elam Haba. And now the Gemara will explain. So what's the meaning of Apoidekoil? Every mashpia has another definition. One mashpia says it's Chaim, the other one says it's Yankel. They give names. God forbid. Okay. So what's a particle? Zehu sha'omer yesh li Torah. I'm moided that Torah is from God. But ve'ein nisoivla. Now, ve'ein nisoivla, you have to know how to teach it. You can teach it. Ve'ein nisoivla means it's too hard for me. That's for sure not particle. No one says that. Because that's every non-tzaddik. Every non-tzaddik, we have a Yetzer Hara. We're not, God forbid, justifying it. I can't. Is someone who says, it's too hard for me. That's not Elam Chelik Elam Haba. That's a Malaya Charatas. Means I don't find it important. There's no importance to it. Even though God gave it. So God gave it. You can say the words, Amoida, that there's Torah min Hashamayim. But if it doesn't do anything, if it doesn't mean anything, it's like saying there's no God. Oh, that's the pshat, or there's no Torah min Hashamayim. Let's leave it at that. Another thing that with this we have in Krisus, that the Ein Soiva goes on all of the mitzvahs. Another taich over there, that if a person says that mitzvah is too hard for me, I believe in the Torah, certain mitzvahs I can't keep. No, that's not Torah. I believe Torah. I cannot keep any of them. Das kann sein. Because every year at least has some mitzvahs that is easy and they have a geshmak. So what's Mefer Bris? Mefer Bris, so the Greeks, they were very much into the physical beauty of the body. And they walked around as like Adam before the Chet. And they found the Bris Milah not attractive. So Mefer Bris, they had a technique. We don't even know exactly how they did it, whether it was permanent. And even if a person had, thank God, a proper Bris Milah, they were Moishech or Losoi. They would somehow pull back the remaining foreskin. Depends that Rabbi Nachman leaves nothing over. But when we're speaking about the other Moyalim that B'diavad make a bris, so there's a lot of foreskin left, which is not good. And they pull it back. And they're doing it so they shouldn't look like a mohel. They are ashamed of their bris milah. The next category, now that's the Hamagala Paramatoya, a person who's very disrespectful, disgraceful to the Torah. So here again, so the Gemara initially says, what is that? It goes on the person who says that there's a problem. Because the Braisa is adding to the Mishnah. The Mishnah clearly already said that category. So you can't add Hamagal upon him and then say the same thing. So the Gemara interrupts. The Gemara says, no. Tenisa, did we not learn that explicitly in the Mishnah? That Ho'emet ain't Torah min Hashamayim? So teaches the Gemara, answers the Gemara, Tani Rab Chananya from Antunya, from Athens, in front of Rab Mana. No. The meaning of Megal upon him Torah, Zeu she'oiver al divrei Torah b'faresya. See, Poidekoil means a person who says, I don't find it important. Even such a person, lav dafka, will break a mitzvah in front of the public. Public halachically means in front of 10 adult free Jews. Someone who is over al divrei Torah b'faresya in a disgraceful way. So he doesn't say over here machal Shabbos b'faresya. That's also important. He gives an example of Yehoyakim, Melech Yehuda. So what happened was that people were not properly keeping parts of the Yiddishkeit, and Yirmiyahu, amongst the other Nevi'im who foresaw the bitterness of the Churban that's to come, someone took from his letter from Yirmiyahu part of Sefer Yirmiyahu, and he read it in front of Melech Yehoyakim, and the way he rejected it was he grabbed the letter, he cut out the letters of God Almighty that was written in the letter, and he threw it into the fire, and he denied it. In other words, a complete pushback by being terribly, abusive to the words of Torah. I'm saying this, perhaps, that not the Yid today, that's Machal Shabbos B'Feresya, not he doesn't know what Shabbos is, doesn't appreciate Shabbos, he's not doing it against anything, he's not going against anyone. Someone who takes God's letters and he throws it into a fire, side of the issue in itself, but that's shot over here of Oiver al Divrei Torah B'Fares. Okay. Now we also began in the previous year about that, Keren and Peres, that if a person has Roiv Zechuyos Umiyut Avoynos, that it will be the person, that will be the Tzaddik Varali, that will be the person that in this world will suffer because Hashem is bringing about the kapara for the sins. What happens now if Ruba Zechuyos, so even though we said before the person is not a perfect tzaddik, but he'll be Yodesh Gan Eden. One thing is clear, that Olam Haba and Gan Eden is not the same thing. Clear? You can have a person that Yesh Lachelek Olam Haba, but Gan Eden he won't have. We learn in Kabbalah that Gan Eden is for Limud HaTorah, Olam Haba is for Kiyum HaMitzvahs. However, Ruba Aveiros, a person has Roiv Aveiros. Another thing, Yodesh Gan Eden in this context also means he B'chlal won't go to Gehenna. He'll go straight to Gan Eden. He has some avonos. He had atonement from this Olam Haza, and that's what we're going to get to the Shem HaMushal. That if, when a person is judged after 120, if Roiv Zechuyos, they don't go to Gehenna. It's only Ruba Aveiros do they go to Gehenna. And we learned this also together in Bavli, that Roiv doesn't. It's not only a number. We don't know how to make these weights. A person can do one mitzvah that was so difficult in that moment that it can outweigh all of that, however you measure. The question now will be, the words in the Bavli is in Rosh Hashanah Beinani. The words in the Yerushalmi is Hoya Me'unyan. Now Me'unyan means Mechzal Mechzal, half and half. How does it fit into the words Me'unyan? That you're Ma'ayin, you're looking for a Roiv. It goes by the Roiv. You're looking and looking, and you cannot determine. Why can you not determine? Because it's 50-50. So now what? So we're going to have three approaches, and this is very deep, and whoever has a good insight should please share it. This is great sermonic material. I was thinking about it, and I didn't have enough time to properly think, but I appreciate the depth over here. No, it's the end. The bottom line will be is that even when it's a Beinani, because of Hashem's Yud Gil Midas Harachamim, Mate Klape Chesed, the person will be found to be Roiv Zechuyos. You have to go to Roiv Zechuyos, but if it's 50-50, how do you get it? Three ways. Rabbi Yossi Baruch Ben Chanina says, I'll tell you how we get it. Approach number one. When it says in the Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim, Noisei Avoin, God tolerates, but it doesn't say B'lashon Haba. It doesn't say Noisei Avoinois. It only says Noisei Avoin. Because when does God tolerate the Avoin? Exactly when it's a Beinani. All you need for this person to have Roiv is for there to be one sin less. So the way God makes this person into a tzaddik, b'shem hamushal, HaKadosh Baruch Hu choytev shtar echad min ha'averos. He snatches one of the documents of his sins. Means you make him into a tzaddik by removing a sin. You're malamet zchus. And now, why really go into Gan Eden? He earned it because v'hazuchuyos now will be machriyos. Machriya means when you have those real weights, right? The two balances. Machriya means which side is going down. You know, it's the hachra'ah has to come ba'avodas atzmai. You have to earn. It's equal. God removes the sin, but now your zechuyas weighted down. Rabbi Lazar argues. Amar Rabbi Lazar, no. Says in Tehillim, L'cha Hashem chassid, ki atot shalom leish, ki ma'aseyu. And like the Pnei Moshe says, it doesn't say ki atot shalom leish ma'aseyu. If it would be exactly tit for tat, exactly mida keneged mida, you would pay ish his maseyu. Ki is metachaf adinyan. It's not exact. How is it not exact? That's the pshat over here. Not exact will means we're looking for Rav Zechuyas. And if it's take mu'unyan, he will also get good. That God will do chesed. But how does God do chesed? V'i leis lei, roiv, yov lei min didach. God will give some of his merit to you. How great is that? In other words, either you remove a sin or you see more merit into the merit, but it's already coming from God. That mitzvah was much bigger than you think. You have to inflate. Do you deflate or inflate? How do you inspire your chinuch? How do you inspire children to be better? By showing them how great they are, or by showing them that they're not so bad. Many people don't do good because they feel I'm ruined, I'm tainted. No, you're not tainted. No, you're. Do you remove the sin, and then that person I think has to do more avodah? They have to do it on their own, or sometimes you have to actually give them the fuel itself. So says the Gemara, I want you to know that Rabbi Lazar l'shitosai, that he dated the Rabbi Elazar. The Rabbi Elazar Amar, this we have in Babli Rosh Hashanah. And that whole thing about the Rosh Hashanah, so what's Yom Kippur for, what's the Seresimei Tshuva, for the Beinani. He says there in the Taich of the Yud Gimel Nesarachman, V'rav Chesed means Mate Klapi Chesed. According to Rabbi Yosef ben Rab Chanina, God doesn't lean on the side of Chesed. You have to lean on the side of Chesed. God just removes the sin. Rabbi Lazar says that Mate Klapi Chesed. And I want you to know that we're going to have a third interpretation. But before we get there, a third way of how does God find that person into a tzaddik, that the Rabbi Yirmiyah pointed out that there are 5 psukim that on a superficial level almost give the appearance that there isn't exact fairness by God, that there's almost a protexia or favoritism, that people are good, God helps them do more good. And people that already made choices to do bad, God helps them do more bad. And so where's the fairness in that? So, and what are these psukim? So Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rabbi Yirmiyah says that Rabbi Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak pointed out, he asked, boy, it says in Mishlei, Tzedakah titzor tram derech. Charity will guard those who are on an upright way. That means the upright person, charity will happen to them and they will guard them. And Virisha, Tesalav Chatos. Evil will corrupt the sinner. In other words, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Beruchnias. Once you're good, there's a lot of siyata d'shmaya for you to do more good. You'll get more opportunities and it will be easier. And if a person is sinful, then there'll be more opportunities for them to sin. They'll get addicted. Then it's harder for them to get out of it. Another pasuk in Mishlei, that chatoyim terade fra. Imagine, chatoyim means evil itself. Evil is running after sinners. Like the guy says, I don't know, all of the troublemakers find me. All of the evil itself, life nach the sinner, and the tzaddikim shalom toiv. But the tzaddikim will be rewarded. They won't even have these nisyonis. Another pasuk in Mishlei, im leleitzim hu yalutz. This goes on God. No, to a scoffer, God will scoff. Implying that God makes it easier for everyone. Once you pick the path, at some point, everything gets easier. So if you chose a path of wickedness, it's easier for you to sin. If you chose a path of righteousness, then God will make it easier. Pasuk in Shmuel, Raglei Chasid of Yishmar. But Urashoyim b'choshech yidam. God is guarding the righteous. Barasa, but that's Iyuv, that's the Tanya. Barasa tzadikim, barasa rishonim. It's not fair. It says another pasuk initially that kaved chachamim yincholum, that the chachamim will inherit honor. Inheritance implies something you did not work for. Comes to you easy. Kaved ain't kaved ala Torah. In other words, good things will come to them. Uchsilim made him kolim, and fools they generate disgrace. So it's not fair. So that, and the way Rab Shmuel bar Rabbi Yitzchak verbalized this kasha, you have to get used to the signal of the Yerushalmi that the Saigen siyaga the Toden Tiriya. Siyag means an enclosed area. If an area is already enclosed, so what? So we enclose it more, and if an area is breached, do you breach it more? If something is breached, who needs help? The Russia needs help. If an area is breached and God wants to intervene, let God enclose the breached area. And if there has to be a certain, you do it on your own, the person who already has an enclosed area, let him do it on his own. Which the Gemara answers, Rabbi Yirmiyah, the same Rabbi Yirmiyah, b'shem Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak, that shomer Adam es atzmai min ha'aveda pam rishoina shniya ushlishis, that part of the reward that God gives to that which you needed to work for on your own is that after on your own, of course, everything is with God's help, but to avoida, not once, twice, 3 times, you guarded yourself. So mikan ve'elech, HaKadosh Baruch Hu mishamroi. Now God will watch it over for you. And Kachi Midas, and look inside the Pnei Moshe, 5 lines before the bottom. No, I take that back. 3 lines under the Gemara. 4 lines. She'im shomer adam esatzom aveda ad gimel pa'amim mikan ve'elach HaKadosh Baruch Hu mishamroi. And v'cheinu leheter, that the Gemara doesn't have to speak out. That im harashoyim kvar murgolin hein ba'atzmon ba'aveiros. In other words, they made a choice like everyone else, once, twice, thrice. Now that they did that, is tirdoy frachreim. Now evil will chase after them. Sheyasu v'yavru oid. Im kvar leleitzim hu yalitz oid. And like it says in Yuma, balatayim misayin oisoi, balatamai poichasin loy. But balatamai doesn't mean initial. It was initially everyone has the same balanced good and bad. And as the Alter Rebbe explains beautifully, we have an inner struggle. Part of what I need to succeed is to be connected to my neshama, for my neshama to be empowered. Every time I make a mistake, I degradate, I exile my neshama. I conceal my neshama, so my neshama is getting weaker. If my neshama gets weaker, so now, it becomes harder to do the right thing. It becomes harder as a consequence of the person's original choice. And what's the source that we have of this concept? Of the 3, that's the question, because we just had 5 psukim, so he quotes a pasuk in Iyuv, where it says, Hen kol ella yifal keil, that behold, Hashem does all this with man, pamayim or shalosh im gavin, 2 or 3 times. In other words, that's a positive pasuk. When does God offer protection? After the person on their own, pamayim shalosh. Now the question is, hold on, pamayim or shalosh? So first of all, perhaps it's connected to the machlokes tanoim. How many times do you have to repeat something to make a chazaka? But I think the real answer is like we mentioned, bekitzer, as we spoke up more when we learned this whole topic in Bavli, that it's not numbers. Roiv is not numbers. So a person can do something good pamayim in quantitatively, but qualitatively, that too is like many. It's not one. Because you have to choose once, you have to choose again. So once you did that, sometimes 2 is like 3. Or sometimes the 3 were so relatively easy, it's only like 2. But in concept, you have to hit the 3. And after that, part of the reward is the facility of the mitzvah. Part of the reward is got in the opposite, is the facility of the sin. And to reward it, or just to conclude from the final angle. The final angle is that many times people do great mitzvahs. Look at us, we're having a building project. But it's coming, the schus, to appreciate that it's a big schus. That in itself is a schad. Like, who gave us the opportunity to do this? Doing good sometimes is the reward, not the avoida, but the reward for other choices that you made previously. Those were hard. Then things to do good gets constantly easier. Amar Abzedom, that this safeguarding is also not engraved in stone. When does God engrave us? That I don't regress, I don't seek out sin. Even when God is guarding the tzaddik, it's not that God takes away the freedom of choice. If the tzaddik is looking for trouble, even the tzaddik can find trouble. If we would know enough, we would know a story of Rabbi Zajac himself where he probably experienced that. Anyways, let's go right. Now, and Matam, where do we have a source for that? Let us say we have 5 psukim that once you reach the tzaddik, you're good. No, it says in Koheles, "V'hachut hameshulish loylo oilam yinotek inksivkan." In the Bavli, "V'hachut hameshulish" goes to someone who it's a third generation. Third generation, "V'hachut hameshulish loy b'meheda yinotek," but it doesn't say loylo oilam. Loylo means it will never be ripped. No, it says loy b'meheda yinotek. And Hachut HaMeshulish means someone who himself was Oimid bin Esoyin 3 times. So now it's firm, but not firm as if there's no more Bchira. Loi b'mehedi yanotik. Ima trachas aloi. But if the person will make a big effort to break that chut of connection to God, God forbid, then a person can always break that cord. So coming back over here, we have the machlekes again between the Yosef and Chanina, that Hashem removes an Aveda. You have the approach of Rabbi Elazar, that Hashem is Mate Klapi Chesed. Hashem pushes down from God's tzidkes. And now Rab Chuna b'shem Rabbabohu, and this is Mamish Behemshech. Now I get to Hemshech. He says like the third approach, that even though HaKadosh Baruch Hu ein lefanav shikcha, there's no forgetfulness. Ha b'shvil Yisrael nasa shoichechan. God makes himself forget, meaning not the way Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Chanina says he takes away a sin. Hashem forgets a sin. It's a big difference. Why is David laughing? The way I understand the Hemshech Hadvarim, we just said that if a person does good 3 times, so then they have a certain Shemirah, right? Not engraved in stone, he won't get the Shemirah. It's a forgetfulness. He won't machriya lekav schus, but the bad is there. Or let's say this concept that if a person sinned 3 times, then he'll be stuck there. That test will come to him easily. He will still get this test easily. If God would remove it, then you go back from 3 to 2. If you go back to 3 to 2, then it doesn't. You don't have the 3 yet. The third is there, but in the judgment, God will forget. And that's talking about the Alter Rebbe saying in Perek Aleph that it's a Shem HaMushal. It's there. When it comes to a judgment, God, as if God forgets it. Okay. And Matam.
Is that Yosef ben Chanina?
No, that's a third approach. In Yosef ben Chanina, Danny, God removes it.
Okay.
So let's say this concept.
He's just forgetting it.
Not forgetting it is not removing it. For what we just learned. Let's say a person did 3 mitzvahs and 3 avedas. So if God is going to take away a sin, then this guy will have the segula of he only sinned twice. Sin will not pursue him, but the mitzvahs will pursue him.
It's for judgment, not before.
For judgment, so that's what he's saying. The nafkamina will be whether he'll get the segula of if this guy sinned 3 times. Right. If God removes the sin, then he's not going to be punished with what we learned above. That sin will pursue him. If God forgets it, sin will pursue him. And only for the judgment, God will be ki'ilu forget. God will forget. And Matam, what's the source of that? This is a Gavaldi. It says noisei avoin. And noisei, with a sin, is God tolerates. He can bear the sin. You'll go straight to Gan Eden. I have miut avoin. Noisei avoin. But the word, the noisei, can be written with Hashem. And nasha means to forget. Ki nashani elikim. That God forgets the sin. Noishei. It's written. We know that the pronunciation is also an oral tradition, but the fact that you can read Hashem betasin, noisheksiv. We have in David, the David Oimed, nosas avoin amecha. Kisisa kol chatosain selo. So they're also nasasa nashasha, which means that God sometimes forgets. Shikha de kedusha. Okay, Atkan.
4 minutes.
Hadran Allah, but we can at least start in the Mishnah. I know it's late, but this Mishnah is easy, and the Mishnah says something that has to be explained. It says the next holy Mishnah. Aim, poichasin lepeya mishishim. Midrabanan, you have to leave at least a 60th. Afal pisha amru ein lepeya shir, because that statement is midoiraisa, and this statement is midrabanan. However, adds the Mishnah, now these words are going to already throw a wrench into the whole thing. Really, it depends on the size of the field, and it depends on how many aniyim, and depending on the yield. Now, let me explain to you the problem of the statement. The size of the field, the bigger the field, then what? The bigger the field, then even if you leave less than a 60th, you're leaving at least something substantial. Zichir, if you're leaving a 60th, the goydel of the sada is a reason for you to leave less. The aniyim, the more the aniyim, the more you should leave. What will happen if you have a big field and there's many aniyim? The Mishnah didn't say. No, you can have these two can be competing against each other. Machlokes in the Gemara. That's the whole Gemara. Ein poichasin. First of all, on one statement we say that don't leave less, but we learned in a Braisa. But ein oimel lo yihavi gemala mutoin. It sounds like from the Mishnah, don't leave less, but leave as much as you want. There's also a limit. What's the limit? Don't leave so much where aniyim need camels to remove the payah. And why not? Tzedakah. Because whatever is left for payah doesn't have to have trumas or maises removed. That's the challenge. So there's a balance. You're going to leave some azoiful payah. What about the kahanim and the leviyim? And even the maiserani? Leave at least the 60th. Leave more. But if you're leaving so much and there's not that many aniyim, that aniyim are going to come with camels to remove, then don't leave that much. You always have to leave a 60th. We're speaking about more. Now, Masnisa says the Gemara that the Braisa who's saying about the Gemalim, that's only if you're thinking about leaving more than 60. Avol, the 60, the rabbinic has to be kept. That means if there's only one ani and I have a big field and I'm leaving a 60th and that ani will have to remove it with Gemalim, so be it. Now, if you go to Lasada, so now we have this machlokes, this question. So says the Gemara, what happens if Sada Meruba? Field is big. Field is big is a reason not to leave that much, because even if you leave less, it's going to be a lot relative to. But the aniyim mu'atim, then noisim lefi sodeyu, which is a 60th and not more. Don't give more than a 60th. It's working together. If the field is little, and the aniyim are merubim, then noisim lefi aniyim, then give even more than a 60th. You don't have to. So they are mu'utavani Ruben. No, I take it back. So they are mu'uta.
Yeah. Small field. And
small field.
You gotta give more.
But you have to give more.
More than a 60th. There's so many poor people. Everyone needs something.
No. Okay, so what we have to put into the competing thing is that. What about the balabais? Right. What about the balabais? Okay, let's make one thing clear. You cannot leave less than a 60th. That's what the Gemara established. We're asking whether you should leave even more than a 60th. So the Tana Kama here, the Sabraisa, holds, we don't care about the balabais. The only focus is on the aniyim. And therefore, if Sadamut of aniyim Rubim, then leave more. However, Rab Shimon, Darash, Nei, Devarim, Lukulish of Alabayis. Rab Shimon, that's the word. Rab Shimon learns what the Mishnah said is to the advantage of the Labais. So they are meruba. If the field is big, vaniyim mu'atim, noisim lefi aniyim. Don't give more. Only leave a 60th. So they are mu'uta vaniyim merubim. So you would think now that you would have to leave more than a 60th. Also, noisim lefi sadeyu. Only a 60th. Even though the ani will receive a meager account.
So he says 60th.
In other words, Rab Shimon holds that when you have a Sada Meruba, then you can leave more than a 60th. I Sada Meruba because at least you'll have a lot of left over. In other words, the Sada Meruba, do you only care about the ani? That's the question. Or do you also care about the balabayis? So the Tanakama says we only care about the ani. Rab Shimon says we care about the balabayis. And if you have to pick and choose, we care about the balabais more than the ani. Never to leave less than a 60th. What about our Mishnah? So the Gemara points out that our Mishnah never spoke about the balabais. That must be our Mishnah loyomrike. That means that our Mishnah is dafka trying to say, I don't care about the balabais. You have to leave at least a 60th. Is it proper to leave more than a 60th? The Mishnah is saying that, yeah, if your field is little and you have a lot of aniyim, and there's a little anava, there's a little yield, if you're going to leave only a 60th, there won't be enough. Then you should leave more. The only time you should not leave more, he's saying, is that if the aniyim are going to need to bring camels to remove it, then, and why not? Not because of the balabais, because the only downside in the Mishnah is that we don't want you to remove more from Trumas Umaisis. But as long as you have aniyim, it's only about the need of the aniyim and not about the need of the balabais. Don't forget that Rab Shimon was Teirasa Yumonasi. Rab Shimon holds, you take care of the aniyim and God will take care of you. To be continued.
Right.
What's this word another?
Another means yield.
It's the same as humility?
No,
I think it's not the same word.
it is, but it means something else.